Last week, the United Nations General Assembly voted in favour of a resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. South Africa opted to abstain from the vote, triggering a response from the EU's ambassador to South Africa, Riina Kionka. Following the vote, the ambassador tweeted, "Sitting on the fence is not an option," saying they're considering what repercussions against South Africa would follow. Earlier, I sat down with the ambassador on that and Africa's divided response to the vote.
Africa actually, as a continent, splits three ways. So there are, some voted for the resolution, some voted against, and others abstained. We, of course, as a European Union, were hoping for a maximal, yes vote for this resolution, which we found very important because of our own history and our own, geopolitical situation. But, every country makes its own decision. Sure. These are sovereign decisions, sovereign countries. And so we move on. The sun rises the next day, and we continue to engage.
Now, one of the things that you've been quoted as saying is that South Africa was sitting on the fence, and it's important once they've made a decision, you will consider what possible repercussions are. Care to comment on that?
Well, repercussions can also be positive repercussions or negative repercussions. That's very early yet to say anything on this point. I think a lot of people are looking at what happened, what it means for our relationship. We just had a few weeks ago a big summit, the EU-African Union summit, and I think we're here in Pretoria. We're certainly thinking in terms of more dialogue rather than less, because clearly we weren't able very well to explain our position to the degree that we would have hoped would have resulted in a different vote from South Africa.
Now, I'll obviously go back to the issue of repercussions, because ordinarily repercussions are not a positive thing. They're a negative that stems from, it's almost like a penalty, if you will. Now, how do you draw the line between the sovereignty of a state and obviously the allies and friends of the European Union?
Well, let me make a point that I think has been overlooked in the press. When the European Union or any other country comes to South Africa and says, well, we would like for you to consider our position when you're taking your decision on a vote. This is normal diplomatic practice. Everybody does it. All countries do it consistently to us also in Brussels. And so this is something that is not unusual at all. I've seen a lot of commentary that suggests that we are somehow not honoring and respecting the sovereignty of countries to which we do, make diplomatic approaches. But it's a normal thing.
Now, obviously, you were expecting more countries to have voted with the European Union. What is this expectation based on?
Actually, we were very happy with the way the vote came out. It was an overwhelming condemnation of Russian military aggression in Ukraine. It was 141 countries, which is a massive part of the UN. Of course, we would have wanted more. In this kind of situation, you count on your friends as well. But each country makes its own decision. What can I say?
I'll speak more to the African countries. I think in one of the earlier questions, you mentioned that you'd have liked to have seen more African countries vote with you.
Yeah, well, actually, if you compare the voting record of 2014 to the one last week, there's not a huge difference. There were three-way splits as well then. I'm speaking of the resolution after the occupation and annexation of Crimea. So there were differences among African countries then as well, and I would think that's a question actually for the African Union and South Africa to consider, not for us.
Even though there are possible repercussions for South Africa for the way they have voted or the decisions that they're likely to make.
Look, I don't want to get ahead of myself or ahead of events. People are discussing, this just happened, and people are discussing in Brussels and in our member state capitals what this means going forward. As I said, here in Pretoria, we think that we need more engagement, more discussions at the diplomatic level with people than less.
Now, something else that is topical and that a lot of people have been talking about is how African students have been treated trying to make their way out of Ukraine. Multiple reports of racism in the Ukraine and also some in neighboring countries. The European Union has come out and said that this is actually not true. There have been no incidents of racism.
I'm not sure if we said that it's not true. What we said is that it's unacceptable. Racism anywhere, on any part of the globe, in any society, is unacceptable. And we've said that upon numerous occasions. What we have said as well, and this is widely understood by the institutions in Brussels as well as the member states on the border with Ukraine, is that nobody should be discriminated against as they come through over the frontier from Ukraine.
But has there been any effort to establish if this is actually happening, and secondly, to correct the situation? Because the situation, as you can imagine, is hostile for these Africans that are fleeing Ukraine, and a press statement, if you were, is not sufficient without actually having people on the ground to ensure that this does not happen. I mean, you've got kids as young as 19 coming out of university, and it can only be traumatic. You have the issue of war behind you, and then you run into individuals that say, no, you can't get onto the train, or you can't cross over into the next country for safety.
I don't know, Hugo, were you at the border? Do you know this? My point is that, yes, we do have people on the ground. We've had multiple commissioners and ministers go visit, look at what's going on the ground. Of course, there are all kinds of journalists, NGOs that are helping bring people in. What I'm also grateful for is that DIRCO has people on the ground. Ambassador Grunewald has come from Kiev, from the embassy, and is on the border with Poland, looking after South African students, and that's very helpful. We have been, the EU delegation as well as member state delegations have been working very closely with DIRCO to make sure that when we hear reports of this sort, that we get right on it, and we have done that.
Now, final question obviously is around France as it seeks to withdraw from Mali, and there has been talk from a number of African states on how the European Union and Africa itself can better manage peacekeeping missions. Do you feel that with Mali, 2 coups in less than a year speaks to the European Union's inability to safekeep Mali and a failed mission?
Well, look, Mali is a very complex situation, as you know. We've been there for some time, and this has been a big project for France, who's the lead nation there. But there are a number of other countries also helping try to keep that peace. For instance, Germany is there. My own country of origin, Estonia, is there. And there's a situation that's arisen that puts us in direct conflict with some of our fundamental values. And so, one has to act on that. What I want to say, though, also is that this EU-AU summit that took place on 17 and 18 February launched a new kind of approach to peace and security, which includes upping our cooperation with the African Union on counterterrorism, such as what we see in Mali and other places, as well as helping arm African armies and security forces who are working to combat this sort of thing.